Hi, guys. Here's another episode of Bad Boss with Anya Soto. And I am
Woo!
so happy to be here with Edwin. Behind the scenes, we kept rescheduling it, and it was hard to get him in the studio, but we are here today. We're ready to chat about bad bosses and good bosses and leadership. We were kind of chatting behind the scenes. So, Edwin Vega is a certified executive leadership development coach. He's working with leaders to maximize their presence, their impact, brings challenging, playful, intuitive approach, which you're going to witness in our conversation. I really love just being in your space and can grow self-coaching muscle during their time together, scale their leadership effectiveness. He helps people to suffer less, which we're going to talk about with the bad boss. How do we suffer less if we report
Woo!
to bad boss? Deepening self-awareness, working with difficult people, leading groups, driving connection and teams. And he has a story about power of quitting and how he quit and won a Grammy. Like, what? Love it.
5 years after I quit, by the way. So, you just never know. That might be the true story of all that.
Yeah, and you know what I was thinking as I was preparing for a conversation, I feel like there's so many people that quit too early
Mm,
and there's so many people that stay too long.
yeah.
And it's like it's that, and in leadership, we have the whole stay. And I have worked a lot on the stay muscle myself, stay in relationship because I am totally
Mm,
like the avoidant. I'm like, I'm out. I want my life,
mm.
my Uber. I'm out. And like learning to stay. So that would be cool. Thanks for coming. Do you want to dive into the quitting or do you want to? Yeah, let's start with quitting. Like,
I
what?
think I
What's
think quitting's kind of fun, right? Obviously, in the zeitgeist, there's a lot around silent quitting in the workspaces, and quitting is just interesting. I know millennials now who will change jobs every year or so,
yeah,
get 20, 30, 40% pay increases.
yeah,
Kind of a power of quitting in some ways,
yeah,
right? It
yeah,
throws
yeah.
their value down. It kind of sends a message, I value myself. And if you can value that, that's okay. I will go somewhere where I will be valued. There's a different tolerance, I think,
Yeah,
around being valued, and also different value about quitting these days that is much more fluid, I think, than in the past.
it is. And I think for business owners, right, to like, can we stop pretending that we're gonna have life first? Because we're not.
Mm,
Like, can we just stop treating people like we are here forever? It's like, no, why don't you come here and you will serve organization will serve you. And we know it's for a limited amount of time. So how do we make the best out of it? Versus like I see a lot of managers go like, I don't want to even talk about career growth because what if I ask them a question and they're like, well, I don't really see myself here a year from now. I'm like, but why?
mm.
Like, there's some fear around quitting, potential quitting. Like it just charged topic.
Well, and what if we reframed it? So I work at a Japanese manufacturing company, amazing employees, and someone was near retirement. And the one thing that my coachee said was the most powerful thing was helping him reframe someone who's going to leave in like 3 to 5 years. And was
Yeah.
kind of like in that checkout zone of
Yeah.
leaving.
Hmm.
And instead, towards retirement, he said, what if these would be the best last years of your career?
I love it.
Totally changed it, right? That person was ending something. He was quitting, his time
Yeah.
there. And he just said it just brought in a refreshed energy, changed all the dynamics of the relationships.
Mhm.
And that leader carries that kind of energy forward now with all the people he's working with. Because we know that people leave in and out for a multitude of reasons. But
Yeah.
can we empower them while they're there? Right? Okay, you're
Exactly.
leaving your job in 3 months. Yeah, great. And how do you want to make it your best 3 months? It's a different
Exactly.
way
And
to
like,
kind
what's
of
the
lead.
legacy? Yeah, it's like an intentional completion almost. And that's the completion. It's like, okay, if I'm going to be complete with my career or with this organization, yeah, there's more
Mm.
intentionality. Like, how do I want to be remembered? What is the impact? What's the legacy? I love that reframe. And I think a lot of people I see, and we're seeing a lot of right boomers who are like nearing that retirement. And there's a lot of
Mm.
conversation. I remember when I was in Toronto, we're talking about like 50% of the workforce will be retired because 50% of government workforce, people who have been there with specifically like the city of Toronto and the government roles, have done their whole life there, their whole career. And now 50% of the workforce are retiring. But there's almost like I don't want to say shame, but it's almost like a little bit shady. Like there's a shady energy because like the youngsters are like, tell me everything you know. And they're like, no, I'm not gonna like do
Mm,
the knowledge share because like then I'm irrelevant. And it's like
mm.
I love how it's like, how can we welcome it with grace and power and acknowledge it versus like trying to pretend it's not happening? Because it is.
This is so good because if you think about it, if we think about grief and how people die and things like that, as a culture globally in general, we're not great about it. We don't talk about it. We don't prepare for it. And maybe in the same way, quitting has a similar thing. There's this fear of ending. There's this thing that we tend to be very averse to accepting that things quit or that you will never be my boss forever.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, no, of course, I want Anya to go on whatever path is best for her, which means she may go be a senior VP somewhere or CEO somewhere
Yeah.
else. And actually, because it's best for her, I'm actually willing to move that forward and support that. So, we're in a different, I think, zone in our culture around where we see endings in some way. There's a big opportunity for us.
That's such a good topic. Yeah, there's just a lot of emotions. Like we have a lot of emotions around it. How did you know, or what was that like for you? Like, what's your relationship with quitting, completing?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this before, and like I just put this on a LinkedIn post, sharing this with friends that I was going to be on this
Yeah.
on your show, and what I mentioned was I know it comes from my family. My mother is a sexual and physical abuse survivor. Like talk about like
Mm.
needing to leave something behind, and she decided to recreate her life in a totally different direction. She
Mm.
didn't swim in the pain of it. She really just kind of almost compartmentalized it and pushed it aside, recarved her path, kind of a version of quitting. She quit like what could have been a really long struggle to heal from that and
Yeah.
really switch in a very different direction. My father, he one day he met my mother under very interesting circumstances. She was already married, but he knew she was not in a good situation.
Yeah.
He told her one day, "I'm going to pick you up after work, and I'm going to take you somewhere." And he literally moved her out of the state. He moved her 4 states away. He took her to her mother's house and said, "Tell her to meet my mother. Here's her address, and tell her that we'll have you safe, and we'll call you when we get where we're going." Like he did this thing in a way to really, he knew he needed a change, and he went to a very big extreme, diving off of a cliff and trusting the way he would fall. He then 3 months later went back and moved all of his family who lived in a very dangerous neighborhood, and he literally walked into his parents' house, got a trash bag, which is very kind of like an immigrant way of moving instead of formally, and
I
grabbed the
totally
curtain
get
rods
it.
and grabbed the curtain rods, put them in the trash bag, just grabbing things. And his parents are like, "What are you doing?" And he said, "We're moving."
We're done.
So he's taken charge in a way that I think for me has really put me on this trajectory of like where quitting comes from, right? Because it helps you to get in touch with what you want. It invites you to keep looking about where is there a reset, a direction of a reset that could best help me move forward. It helps you let go of like what you perceive about others. Because I am so consumed with what do I need to make more impact, move it forward, that you really start really focusing only on what's most essential. So for me, I feel a lot of that comes from my family in many ways. I'm
And your
Puerto Rican.
DNA change.
Totally. I'm Puerto Rican. And while Puerto Rico is a part of the US, there is a feeling of being an immigrant because of the differences in language and culture and all of that. So there's probably some of that like immigrant upbringing of values and customs and work ethic that probably have been
Yeah.
instilled in that too.
Wow, that is so powerful. And someone who has moved 3 times and have lived in
Mm,
3 countries and quit careers and quit marriage and quit, like, I definitely resonate. And it's like, and like I had massive like moves. Like when I moved to US
mm.
2 years ago, it was me, my wife, our 3 kids, and 30 luggages. We literally were
Woo!
like, sell everything. We're
Wow.
starting over. And it was COVID, and there's a lot of freedom in it, and there's a lot of power in walking away. And I think, yeah, we're all looking for that. I think with quitting, we're looking for almost like a point of no return. I think that's what I wanted to I think when you stay too long,
Mm,
I'm just formulating it, I don't know where it's going to go,
yeah.
but I think when you stay too long, you get to that critical point of no return where you're like, I'm done, I'm out.
Yeah.
Versus if you actually are intentional about completion, and work on your relationship with feeling like, you know what, this chapter feels complete. Like I
Mm.
think it feels done. Then I think there's not a lot of emotions. You can then move through it like not as I feel like every time I quit, it was like radical. Like there's
Yeah,
never
yeah.
any about it. It's like we're moving across
Well,
the country.
here's why I'm laughing.
Yeah.
So I went to Yale University, which in my family's world was huge. I had gone to college for 8 years, and it was fine. My parents would come to classes; they loved it. But when I went to Yale, it was like a whole nother level for them. They got off of a plane, had Yale T-shirts. I hadn't even been to the school yet,
Oh,
so, which is interesting, right? Because they got it in a way that they had never thought of it before.
yeah.
I quit going to Yale 2 months in. And that, I mean, on paper, I was more struggling with like myself, like around what would my parents say and this and that. And I remember calling them, telling them, I think I'm leaving school. And immediately they said, we're so happy. And I was like, what? They're
Really?
like, you've sounded so sad on every on every
Oh,
phone call that we've had.
yeah.
And it hurts me a little bit to think like, oh my gosh, they knew that was going on, right? And here I thought I was hiding it.
Yeah.
And here they were supporting me. Like, if it's your time to leave, who cares if, I only did one semester there. Funny
Yeah.
enough, I said I was leaving 2 months in and I still completed the semester. So I decided, even though I was leaving, like I'm going to complete a full semester here. They
Mhm.
invited me to go to Italy for the summer for an opera program. It got me to go to Israel. I mean, these beautiful aspects of my life versus I could have quit and just left. But I
Yeah.
actually find that quitting and staying in relationship is really powerful. Like, how do I actually decide it's time for me to end something and I'm going to do it in a way that like serves everyone and serves my relationship? I think that's a
Yeah.
different angle.
I love that because yes, some often, right, if we're talking about like corporate and business environment, kind of bringing it, I mean, personal work is all the same. We feel like if I quit, I cannot have a relationship with you, right? And I think there's so much conversation now about like, I love the concept of like exiting with grace. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, and we're just moving into different chapters and continuing the relationship where both people feel secure enough in themselves to say, maybe that wasn't like, I mean, it served its purpose, whatever it was. Sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's one conversation, sometimes whatever it was meant to be, it served its purpose. And I can definitely resonate with Yale because there's like a status attachment to it, right?
Oh,
People
yeah.
status.
Huge. Well,
So,
you said sometimes it has its cycle. I was there for 2 months and I knew it was something about it. And granted, I had been in college for 9 years, including summers, and I loved school. But something hit me of like, oh, we're done. And I had to like decide, do I argue and fight that? Or do I just kind of give in to it? And giving in actually paved a different way. And like you said, sometimes these happen for a reason. That got me to the East Coast. And then I've lived in New York now for 16 years. So what if that was the only purpose?
yeah.
To move me to a different part of the country where I maybe wouldn't have gone right away, and trusting that I will land on my feet again, probably from my father in that way of always diving and landing
Yeah.
on their feet in many ways.
Yeah. And you had a support system. And I think that makes such a big difference because when everyone around you says, you're stupid, why would you quit school? Why would you quit this job? I was in that place. They're like, you have everything. Why would you end the marriage? Because I'm not happy. Well, that's like happiness is like elusive, right? It's like, because
Yeah.
from the outside, it's like you have a great job, you have a great house, you're married, you have this. It
You're
looks so,
singing in London, you're singing in Berlin, you're singing full time. Why would you leave? And actually, I even still get that today when I introduce myself, working like with leaders or leading a retreat. And they're like, wait, why would you give that up? Well, on paper, outside to everyone, I think it had prestige and a lot of, it was really sexy in many ways. But internally, it was like, oh, I'm not being valued here the way I want to. I'm not making the impact I want to be making. I got bullied on jobs as well. It was just not great for me.
yeah.
And when I took a stand about leaving, it was like, oh, this is right. And I knew it was right because everything that happened before, I had always thought, oh, I sang like Carnegie Hall. And I thought, wow, if my career ends tomorrow, I'll be happy. Like I just knew that I was like, I
But the
had the moments I
completion
need to
piece,
have.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So even that, I quit singing in 2015 on my birthday, which is kind of cool, was my last performance, which was lovely. And then 5 years later, a recording I had made at that time got released. So we made the recording. It kind of was a shit show making it as well. And then, I'm like, whatever. I don't really care about it. And then all of a sudden it gets nominated for a Grammy. I'm like, what? And I'm like, okay, one, we're not going to win. It ends up winning. And so
Oh
now I'm
my
like,
God.
the whole thing about do your best, no matter what's going on, kind of really fits. Like I committed to it. I tried my best. And also I got to let it go. And it kind of did its own thing
I have
without me
goosebumps. I'm like,
meddling in
what's
it.
the story? Because I mean, there's just so much of it. It's like the letting go, the trusting. Unfortunately, it's always hindsight 2020. It's like,
Mm.
oh, now it makes sense. Because when you're in it, it's like it sucks.
Oh, this is good, because what I tell myself in those moments, I trust it will make sense. So imagine in those moments, sometimes you have clarity, but for me, I don't tend to spin on those. I kind of think like, all right, it's going to make sense eventually. And I move towards the next thing. And thankfully, things have continued to work out.
Congrats on winning the Grammy. That's like a
Ah,
big deal. Whatever happens, it's like it's a cool big moment, to celebrate, and nobody
well,
can take that
to
away from you.
to
So
be
you're
fair, I
right.
never had one of those cool things of like, tell us something random about you. This is probably one I always have now, so that feels
Yeah.
kind of like a fun
I mean,
party trick.
it served its purpose to like continue to be part of your story. That's like part of your biography. It's like that's it.
Yeah. And
So
also maybe about quitting too, there's like we get to be different versions of ourselves year in, year out. And that's one version. I was a singer for a long time and I committed to it. Well, now I'm a coach and that's where I'm at now. And most likely there will be another integration of how I change and move in life. So I want to kind of make sure I'm open to that too.
so in leadership, we use a lot of dancing in the moment. So it sounds like you're still doing a lot of singing in the moment. You're just singing a
Ha!
different song now.
Pardon me?
You're just singing a different song.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that your metaphor?
Yeah, no, I love it. It's even like in different. I used to sing in many languages: Italian, French, German, Polish, Russian, Czech. Like you sing in so many cool languages. And with life, it's kind of like, oh, this is the next song we're singing. How do I break it down? Let me just do the rhythm first. Let me look at
Mm,
the words. What do I want to convey? Like, there's something about breaking things into pieces that kind of has a relation point, I think, to like how we work with leaders, how I look at change. I don't look at change as the whole big piece, big thing. I look at like, what are the small pieces? And then it feels manageable,
yeah.
in some kind of way.
Yeah. It's like, how do you eat the elephant, right? It's like you have
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
This is- So let's continue. I love this. I've never talked to anybody about quitting, ending,
Mm,
completion, and I think it's such an important topic. So, if we're speaking about a bad boss, right, and so often, like my kind of mission, right, is to work with organizations and really help their leaders, their managers grow skills, grow themselves to be good leaders so that people can stop suffering. I believe a lot of leaders are toxic or are perceived toxic or not creating a healthy environment because they have not had the skills, they have not been
mm.
trained, they have not been supported. So if someone right now watching the show, and this is kind of like a different lens on it, who has a bad boss, who has an environment that they know is not good for them, that doesn't
Mm.
feel good, that is just like not life giving. It's very like depleting in their energy, their passion, their aliveness, all of this. What would advice would you give them? But there's always money, responsibility, right? We have
Oh, you mean real life things to consider?
yeah,
Yeah.
like there's life. So we can
Yeah.
talk about like the coaching. Just go. I think you should just go if it doesn't feel
Yeah.
good. But like, where do you start?
For me, where I start is trust yourself.
Hmm.
Like, don't feel like you have to find proof for why you feel that way or proof why you think they're being that way. It's like, first of all, just trust that you're having some kind of experience that's flagging to you there's some concerns that you need to pay attention to.
Mhm.
It's almost like if
That's
we're
valid.
driving on the road and you see the warning sign, do you pay attention or do you just look away and keep driving? You
Yeah.
know? So for me, it's like one, trust yourself. Second, typically in the work that we're doing, we hardly ever have the bad boss with us working with our other client who actually may have the bad boss. So
Yeah.
I actually have them think about themselves like, actually, what's going on with you around this bad boss? Because to be real, You are going to meet many bad bosses in life. You're going to meet bad managers. You're going to meet bad colleagues. Like, this is the thing. So knowing that that's the landscape, how can you actually look at yourself here to adapt, to withdraw, to create change and actually influence, influencing others, a big leadership competency that we work with our leaders. And also at the end of the day, leaving is okay. If it's more healthy for you to leave. I also make that analogy, you've been to New York City often. It's a summer day and it's like, wow, no one's in the train car. You go in, it's like, it's 300 degrees in here. No wonder no one's inside.
Makes sense. Why? Yeah. I thought it was a smart one.
Exactly. Well, here's what doesn't make sense. People stay in the train car. And it blows my mind. And I move to the next train car. It's still a little warm. I move to the next car. It's still a little warm. I move to the fourth car. Air conditioning. Hey, it's nice. But I'm amazed that people stay in the train car. And that's probably to your thing where people don't quit. Yeah. So for me, it's like, if the room is stuffy, if that train car's stuffy and it's not like really helping you, get out, move, do something for yourself in some way.
I love that. I will also, I know in the background that we share, there's also a piece of ownership, right? And where am I co-creating kind of like this dynamic? So, and there are a couple of pieces, like what have I allowed in this dynamic and what has been allowed at the org level and systemically, right? Like, why is this person thinks they can behave this way? And so there's a little bit of, I don't know, what do we call, like, what's the 2% you can own in this?
Oh, I mean, well, first of all, people hire us to do coaching. And even when I get a sense that someone's like very unhappy and they're interviewing and they want to leave, it's like, well, listen, your company brought me in. I can't coach you out of your job. That would be unethical on my part. However, I could coach you to be the best you can be however long you stay here. It's a different conversation. And usually, like you said, it's like, well, this dynamic that you're talking about, where are you responsible in it? Where have you given up on your boss? Where do you judge your boss constantly? Yeah. Maybe you need to offer some empathy in that kind of direction.
Yeah. Where did you disengage?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's something here about putting responsibility on them in a way to empower them, knowing that, hey, you can make change, you can influence here. Typically, people are feeling like they can't influence. So that's our job, to help them realize, actually, you have way more capacity than you think you do.
And power. Like, I have power in this.
Power. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I feel like this is coming to completion. What are you feeling about the arc?
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving it because it's also like I'm in a story of like, while I think I'll be coaching for a very long time, the aspect of quitting is like, maybe what do I do less of so that I can make more impact? I'm thinking about work I want to do in the foster care system, work that directly impacts children. So there's an invitation here for people to think about, like, what is something I may want more room for in my life? And because of that, I may need to stop or do less of something else to make room for that. We probably all have that something, whether it's professionally or personally. Yeah. And, if we can be in that kind of mindset, we're going to raise better children. We're going to raise kids to be more self-navigating so that they actually suffer less from anxiety and actually are able to motivate and drive themselves through this very challenging life experience that will probably be always and forever.
But it's like self-regulation. And I'm also, as I'm listening to you again, like, yeah, I love what I do today. And even within what I do, there's a constant transition. Like, it's never, I feel like nothing ever ends and then nothing ever begins. Like, it's all a transition and a flow of something else. So whatever you choose to do next, coaching will always be part of it. Facilitation will always be part of it. Creativity, singing, influence, like nothing ever ends.
Well, it's so brilliant what you're saying. I just worked with a pharmaceutical company, amazing company. And, the question was, hey, do we work with you with how you might be structured in the future? And they said, you don't know. Let's work with the way it is right now. There's so much about the present that we have to keep diving into. The more you're awake to that, you probably realize, like, oh, it's time to kind of find a new role or find a new job or find a new mentor or a new advocate, whatever that might be for whoever's listening. Yeah. Like, stay present to the moment to then let it reveal what's needed next. Most likely those signs will be there for you to pay attention to.
Yes, this is a beautiful moment to end. Great.
Thank you
That's
so
such
much.
good advice. Thank you,
I'm kind
Edwin.
of like wondering, like, wow, what is the next thing I'm going to quit? Which is kind of an interesting
Like,
thing.
imagine if like we actually reframed it and to kind of work with that fear of like, yeah, what is it time to end? What is it time to
Mm,
complete, to create more space, more energy, more. So keep me posted. So
absolutely.
grateful. This has been amazing. And yeah, not what I expected. I had the whole list of questions that we never even talked about, but that's the beauty of the show. It's like we're going on a journey, we're bringing with you on a journey. We never know what it's going to be, but it was so powerful and such a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing your story about your family, your journey. And yeah, and just, I think some of us just need to trust ourselves more and remember the evidence that everything always worked out that
Yeah.
brought us to this moment.
It's
It
a
all
good
worked.
thing to stand on. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.